All right, baseball fans, let's just dive right in because the 2026 season is shaping up to be an absolute blockbuster. We're talking about a potential dynasty chasing history, a whole bunch of hungry challengers trying to play spoiler, and some MVP races that are just going to be epic. So the big question on everyone's mind is, who's going to conquer baseball? Let's get into the predictions.
You know, when you really get down to it, after all the talk, all the debate, the entire season really seems to hang on one single massive question. Can anyone, and I mean anyone, stop the Los Angeles Dodgers? And just to give you a little perspective on how dominant we're talking, listen to this from ESPN's Jeff Passan. He was asked what the Dodgers' biggest hurdle is to winning it all, and he said their main obstacle is, well, just having a bad week. He says considering the overwhelming talent gap between them and the 29 other teams, it's the most accurate answer. I mean, just let that sink in. Their biggest opponent isn't another team, it's just a rough patch on the calendar. That's absolutely staggering.
So let's talk about this potential dynasty. This is a team that's on a quest for a three-peat. That's something we haven't seen in the sport since the turn of the century with those legendary New York Yankees teams. So this isn't just about one great season. We are literally watching history unfold before our eyes. And look, this slide pretty much says it all, right? They're going for a third straight title. And somehow, they actually got better. They took maybe their one tiny weakness, the bullpen, and added the best closer in baseball, Edwin Diaz. Then, as if that wasn't enough, they went out and signed Kyle Tucker, the best bat on the free agent market. You add those guys to a lineup that people are already calling one of the best of all time, and you've got a juggernaut. And if you need a picture of what we're talking about, well, here you go. Just look at this chart for the National League champion predictions. The Dodgers, 27 votes. The Phillies are next with just 2. It's not even a race in the minds of the experts. It's basically a formality. Okay. But we all know baseball's never that simple, right? So let's flip over to the American League and see who might be gearing up to pull off a massive upset. Who really has what it takes to challenge this team? And the first name that comes up almost every single time is the Seattle Mariners. And the reason why is pretty simple. It all starts on the mound. Pretty much everyone agrees. The best starting rotation in the American League belongs to Seattle. So what's the Mariners' recipe for an upset?
Well, you start with that lights-out rotation, you back it up with a deep bullpen anchored by Andres Munoz, and then you add in the motivation of getting just one single win away from the World Series last year. They even beefed up the offense by adding Brendan Donovan to a lineup already led by their superstar, Julio Rodriguez. This isn't just a good team, folks. This team is on a mission.
And you know, Tim Kurgian from ESPN just nails their whole vibe perfectly. He says, the Mariners got a good taste of the playoffs last year. They want more. You can just feel that hunger building up there in the Pacific Northwest. But Seattle's not the only team making noise in the AL. There's another team over in the Central that's been quietly putting together a real contender. You're going to want to keep your eyes on the Detroit Tigers. So with the Tigers, it's all about this slow, steady build, you know? They've been knocking on the door of the ALCS for 2 straight seasons now. That young core of theirs isn't just promising anymore. They are hitting their prime. They added a veteran arm to the back of the bullpen with Kenley Jansen, and their farm system is finally producing the big-time hitters they've been waiting for. This team is built for a deep run in October. Now, of course, beyond the main contenders, you always have the bold predictions, and you just gotta love this one. Jesse Rogers was the only person to give the Oakland A's a wild card vote, and his reason is just perfect. He says, "Truth be told, I made the same pick last year, I was just a year early." Hey, you have to appreciate that kind of confidence. Speaking of individual belief, let's switch gears a little bit because outside of the team championship, we have some absolutely epic battles brewing for individual glory. We gotta talk about the MVP races. These are gonna be some real heavyweight fights. So in the American League, it's a classic setup. You've got the reigning king, the 3-time MVP, Aaron Judge. And then you have the dynamic, electrifying challenger, Bobby Witt Jr. of the Royals. And get this, the experts are almost perfectly split. 11 votes for Judge, 10 for Witt. It does not get any closer than that. This is going to be fun to watch all year. So the argument for Judge, it's pretty simple. He's just historic. Paul Hembekides notes that he has a batting line we have not witnessed since Barry Bonds. He goes on to say that his ability to pile up WAR puts him head and shoulders above his AL peers. I mean, it is really, really hard to bet against numbers like that. But on the other side of the coin, you have the challenger. And Eric Karabell makes a great case for Witt, saying it is hardly a stretch to expect Witt to earn this award at some point. He thinks Witt has everything it takes to be the guy who can finally end Judge's MVP streak. Okay, so while the AL is a total dogfight, the National League, well, it's a completely different story. It's not a race, it's looking like a landslide. Just look at this donut chart. Shohei Ohtani, with a ridiculous 21 votes. Juan Soto is a very distant second. It seems like for the experts, this is Ohtani's award to lose. And this isn't just about another trophy for the case. We are talking about real, actual history here. If Ohtani wins again this season, he will tie Barry Bonds for the most consecutive MVP awards ever, with 4. We are all just witnesses to a living legend.
All right, from the best hitters to the guys who make them look silly, let's talk about the pitchers, the unhittable aces who are battling it out for the Cy Young Award.
So in the National League, the experts are expecting a repeat. After an unbelievable season last year, they're picking Pittsburgh's Paul Skenes to win his second straight Cy Young. He got 23 out of the 30 votes, so it's a pretty heavy consensus. The American League, though, that's a different story. It's way tighter, but Seattle's George Kirby is seen as the slight favorite to take home his very first award.
So, we've got the dominant dynasty, we've got the hungry challengers, we have historic MVP races, and aces on the mound. It all comes down to one final question. After all is said and done, who is going to take it all?
While the votes are in, the debates are over. Here it is, the experts' final verdict on who will be the 2026 World Series champion. And there it is, the experts are betting on history.
They're picking the Dodgers to pull off the three-peat, which would absolutely cement them as one of the all-time great dynasties. But what I think is really interesting here is the Seattle Mariners. 6 votes. That's a strong showing. They aren't just a dark horse. The experts see them as the most likely team to spoil the party and maybe, just maybe, bring that first-ever championship to the Northwest.
So, the stage is set. The script is written for a dynasty to continue its reign. But as every single baseball fan knows, predictions on paper don't mean a thing once the games start. So will the season play out the way everyone thinks it will? Or is there a historic, unbelievable upset waiting for us right around the corner? That, my friends, is why we watch.